Hour number 2 is upon us. Thank you so much for finding us tonight. If you were not here for the first hour, we just interviewed Donna Miller from Miller's Grainhouse and the founder of PrepareMag.com. Of course, I'm your host, Proof Negative. We have Mandy Parsons as my co-host on Tuesdays. And joining us right now, of course, the former Alaskan pipeline chaplain that is now, you may have heard him on Coast to Coast. You may have heard him on Alex Jones, among other shows. And he's a regular here on Freedomizer Radio as well. And he has some very important information he does want to share with us tonight. So I'm glad he was able to grab a spot here on short notice. Pastor Lindsey Williams, thank you for joining us.
Proof, what a privilege it is to be with you tonight, as always. Thank you so very much for letting me join in with you on such a short notice, because things are happening rapidly out there right now.
Right, I told everybody to get their pens and papers ready, so hopefully everybody's all set.
Well, they will definitely need those pens and papers tonight, and things are just, as long as a person is informed, as you know, Proof, if people know the issues, they're informed of the issues, they can spare themselves great heartache, and they'll come out pretty good in the end. But it's those who just won't listen, won't get informed. So tonight, you're going to be informed of something that will startle you. It happened last week, and when I found out about it, I was utterly dumbfounded. The elite have done something this time, have done a test run, and it is so interesting. Whenever I contacted my insider friend and got the details of it, I was utterly amazed, and that's when I gave you an email. I sent you an email, and I said, Proof, any possibility of telling this before very long?
Absolutely. So whatever time you need, you're my last guest today. I'm on until 9 o'clock, so do your worst.
Well, thank you so much. Let's begin back where it began with me about, let's see. Well, okay, let me go back a ways. On your program, I know I always have some new friends. And there's some that may not recognize why I can say some of the things I'm going to say tonight and talk about things that you might hear about a week or two from now on the news. So just briefly, for a number of years, 12 years, in fact, I was a pastor of a church, and I was invited to be the chaplain to the elite of the world. And for 3 years' time, I lived with the people that you only hear about, but very few people ever get to meet. They were not coming to my church. I was involved with their business. And as a result, I had an opportunity to sit across the dinner table from them, talk with them in person, and what I learned changed my life. Literally, I will never be the same person again. If someone had asked me prior to my experience, Chaplain Williams, do you believe there's a group of people on the face of the earth who control the world? I would have laughed at them. Honestly, I would have. So don't feel bad if you have trouble believing this sometimes. If someone had asked me after my 3 years of literally living with these people, sitting in their board meetings, talking one-on-one with them, Chaplain Williams, do you believe there's a group of people on the face of the earth who determine who the President of the United States of America is going to be, who tell Congress what bills to pass, who control the currencies of the world, and on any given day tell OPEC what they'll give them for a barrel of oil? I would have said, not only do I believe it, I sat and listened to them talk about it. Now, that was a number of years ago.
Right.
I made friends with some of those people back in those days. I did it intentionally because I knew I'd like to keep in touch with them. I learned during my 3 years of living with them that nothing ever happens by chance. Everything is done by design plan. Everything that happens in the financial world, in Washington, all of these things have been planned a long time before behind closed doors. And when you hear about it, It's long since been decided how it's going to be. And that's exactly what happened last week. Over these 37 years, these people now, of course, are in their 70s and 80s, and over these 37 years that I have been in touch with some of them, they have never one time ever told me anything that it did not happen exactly like they said it. It's almost uncanny how they can plan things so precisely behind closed doors and then have the power to be able to bring them to pass in everyone's life. They're doing some things right now that you need to know about. So if you have those pencils and paper handy, then you'll be able to take notes on what I'm giving tonight and know exactly what you're going to expect in coming months, because they have given a test run. I hope you understand that word. Let me give you an example. Let's say that Boeing Aircraft builds a new type of airplane, a whole new structure. And as soon as they get the first prototype off of the assembly line, they don't fill it with passengers and fly it around the world. They wouldn't dare do that. Instead, they'll send a test pilot up, and he'll fly it, and then he'll go up and fly it again, and then he'll make some changes, and he'll fly it again. And they keep working with that thing until they've got it perfected. That's exactly what the elite did last week. The average person didn't have the slightest idea what was happening, except that the financial markets had gone into a spasm, but nobody knew why. And the elite were actually doing a test run to see how they could do it when they get ready to bring it to pass. Now, in the course of all of this tonight, in explaining to you what they did, I will try to point out some timetables. That's right.
Okay.
You can know in advance what's going to happen before it happens. There are certain indicators that if you know them and you know how to look for them, you can really save yourself a lot of problems. And you can save yourself going into bankruptcy. You will know what they're going to do in advance. And last week, they did a test run on something that, to my knowledge, they've never done before. They went so far as to actually put some factors into place in order to bring about an event that happened in a small way. If it had gotten out of their hands, by Monday morning, we would have had a financial collapse of the American dollar. But it was a controlled test to see how they can do it, what will happen, how the public would respond. And until right now, I haven't seen a single newsletter out there that has talked about this. So, Proof?
Yes.
This all began. Yeah, did you have something you wanted to give there before I go into it?
No, I was just acknowledging you here so you didn't think I left you.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. It began with me on Thursday morning of last week, June the 20th. And I had not heard from my elite friend in weeks, literally weeks. I wondered if he was on vacation. I didn't know where he was, didn't have the slightest idea what was happening to him. And last Thursday morning, I received 2 emails in one morning after not hearing from him for weeks. And when I got these emails, I was, of course, I knew there was something there. I knew there was something I was supposed to know. And I'm going to put it in the best way I know how to say it. I was horrified. To the average person, these emails might not have meant much, but they meant an immense to me because I know some of the buzzwords, I know some of the key phrases that the elite were doing. And as a result, when I saw these things, I was very, very startled. After I read them carefully, went over them numerous times, printed them out, at that point, I got on the phone and I called my insider and I said, will you please explain all this to me? You know, oftentimes they'll say things to me and I really don't understand the depth of what they're saying because they know so much more than what I do. And, of course, I have a degree in college. Yes, I have a bachelor's degree, but it's in Bible. It's not in economics. And these people think in terms of dollars and cents and control and manipulation. And so oftentimes I just have to pick up the telephone and call them and say, would you please explain what you're doing? And he did. I was dumbfounded. In fact, I literally was glued to that telephone for about 45 minutes as he explained to me the intricate details of what they had just done beginning on Wednesday afternoon of last week, which was the 19th of June. And what you're about to hear, if you will take it to heart and you will apply it in your financial world, you will be able to spare yourself a lot of difficulties in the next 6 months to a year. And I'm begging you, please, to really take this to heart and say, okay, I'm going to watch it, and in coming days I'll know in advance when things are going to happen. It all started back on Wednesday afternoon of last week when Mr. Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, hinted, that's right, I want you to catch this word now, he hinted, he did not make an outright statement. He hinted that the Federal Reserve might stop printing quite as much money. It set the financial markets in a frenzy. And then on Wednesday night something happened, Thursday something happened, but then when I started talking with my insider friend, I found out every bit of it had been planned. They were sitting back in their fancy offices watching to see what the result would be, because they basically were doing a test run or a dry run so that when they get ready to do this, they will know exactly what to do. And this was a trial. And they were using you and the financial markets as a guinea pig. Now, in order to explain what happened, many of you recognize that the Federal Reserve is pulling out of thin air $85 billion every month and putting it into the economy, giving it to the financial institutions, giving it to banks all over the world, $85 billion every month. They're buying up mortgage-backed securities, and they are literally pulling this money out of thin air, has no value whatsoever, has no gold backing, no silver backing, no land backing, no nothing, just literally pulling $85 billion out of thin air every month and throwing it to the wind to the banking institutions of the world in order to keep them from collapsing. And the banking institutions know that the moment that Mr. Bernanke and the Federal Reserve stopped doing this, that they could collapse. That's right, literally collapse. Our dollar would go to zilch. You would take a wheelbarrow load of dollars, paper dollars, to the grocery store just to be able to buy a loaf of bread. If Bernanke did what he hinted on last Wednesday afternoon that he might do, he hinted that we might print a little less money in the near future than what we've been printing in the past. Now, that was intentional. It was not by chance. He had already been told what to say. They had already decided behind closed doors what he was going to say, and then they were going to sit back and watch to see what happened. Proof, I've got to pause you just long enough to ask you. You're a very knowledgeable man. You've been a talk show host now for a long, long time.
Right.
Can I somehow get people to believe that there are people in the world that have the power to do things like this?
Yeah, I guess on the surface, if someone's brand new to the scene, they would have no clue what you and I and Mandy here would be talking about, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what would happen if there's less money being printed.
Yeah, and of course it would collapse the financial institutions.
But then again, Lindsey, you have another side of the coin that you haven't gotten into yet, which is there are countries out there that are no longer using the American dollar. So we're still going to have a lot of it out there, because if Australia trades with China, they don't trade in U.S. dollars anymore. I know you shared that with us a couple times.
Well, the test case that Mr. Bernanke and the elite did last week does not involve only the American dollar. It involves China. It involves the euro. It does involve the American dollar, but it involves the entire world. This was not a test case for the American dollar. It was not a test case to see if they could collapse the American markets. And I'll show you in just a moment. By the way, everyone listening tonight on this broadcast, I want you to write this down, please. And after the program, I want you to do it. Or if you have a laptop in front of you, you might do it while you're listening. But you be sure and don't miss anything of what's being said. I want you to go to LindseyWilliams.net. That's LINDSEY, Williams.net. Now, when I received these two emails on Thursday morning from my insider friend, I immediately posted them on LindseyWilliams.net. I knew that this was catastrophic. And you can go there and actually read the two emails. That's right. I took the liberty of actually posting the two emails that my insider friend had sent me on LindseyWilliams.net. And you go there. I want you to print them out. And after you hear the broadcast, you will be able to understand just how intricate these things are. So just so that you'll know where to go, and you can actually read them for yourself. Now, I want to tell you what happened. Let's go back again to what Bernanke did. On Wednesday afternoon, he hinted that they might not print as much money next month. That didn't involve just the American dollar, because keep in mind that this $85 billion every month that the Federal Reserve just pulls out of thin air, they don't give it just to the American banks. This goes to European banks. This goes to many banks in the world. And it involves derivatives and securities. So whenever you get this in mind, you realize that they were making a test case to see how far they can go with all the currencies of the world. Okay, let me explain to you what happened. Bernanke made the statement, and the moment he made the statement, something happened. You need to write this down or print out those two emails when you go to LindseyWilliams.net, and I want to read it to you. The 7-day repo rate, the benchmark rate for funding costs between banks, surged. Did you catch this? The moment Mr. Bernanke made that statement on Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. Now, let me try to explain what this is. Every night while you and I are sleeping, the banks literally do billions of dollars worth of business behind our back. Well, it's just normal. Many banks have done this as long as anybody's known. Let's say that Bank of America needs an extra $1 billion tomorrow because they know somebody's going to make a loan. They will go to the Bank of England and say, I would like to borrow from you just for 24 hours overnight. I would like to borrow $1 billion from you. This is nothing unusual. This happens all night long while you're sleeping. Literally billions and billions, maybe even $1 trillion might be changing hands out there overnight. And it's all done by wire. No money actually is transferred from one to the other, all done by wire. And there's something called a 7-day repo rate, the benchmark rate for funding costs between banks. Banks, as long as we can remember, have been able to depend on the fact that if they needed to get money from another bank overnight, of course they pay it back the next day probably, but if they needed to get it overnight, they could get it at 3.3%. Please write that down. 3.3%. Banks and those who play the derivative market, will you please catch this? Do you realize that the derivative market is a glorified banking, gambling cartel, and it's called derivatives, and every bank in the world is involved in it. The Federal Reserve is involved in it. Very wealthy people are involved in it, and it's called derivatives. They were started about 40 years ago, and today there's no control over them whatsoever, And the derivative market, it is estimated today is 2 quadrillion. That's how big it is. You can't even comprehend it. It's so big. And people bet on everything. Yeah, they bet on the weather.
But you could even bet on the weather if you wanted to.
Yeah, you're right. You can bet on the weather if you'd like. One bank can bet $1 million that the weather's going to be good in that city the next day. And somebody else would pick up and say, well, yeah, we'll give you 3% interest on that. And they know that they could get on the 7-day repo rate, benchmark rate between banks overnight, they know they could get 3.3%. Well, when Mr. Bernanke made that statement, that 3.3% immediately on Thursday morning surged to 8.26%. This hasn't happened since 2008. The same thing happened back in 2008 and brought the crash that we had back in 2008. So it surged. Later in the day on Thursday and on Thursday night, it surged all the way to 12.33. And you realize that no bank in the world could do business on Thursday night of last week, Thursday night and Friday morning? You didn't realize this. No bank in the world could borrow from another bank. The repo rate had gone so high that no way that they could afford to borrow the money. From 3.3% to 12.33% by Friday morning, and when Friday morning came around, the financial markets of the world were literally in shivers. I mean, they were shaking in their shoes. And they knew that something was going on. That is identically what brought about the crash of 2008. Mm-hmm. Well, when I got this email, and please, again, let me beg of you, go to lindseywilliams.net, lindseywilliams.net, and print this out. When I got this email, I immediately picked up the telephone and I said, I hope I'm going to get my insider. And sure enough, I did. And you know, one of the first things he said to me was, he said, Chaplain, do you know the connection between that benchmark rate for funding between banks and the derivative market? Now, he didn't say anything about the derivative market in either one of his emails to me. Never mentioned it. But as soon as I got on the telephone, he said, do you know the connection between that and the derivative market? Now, let me try to explain. Let's say that you are a multi-billionaire and you want to make a bet on something. You're feeling good tonight, and you don't want to bet on your favorite horse, but you want to bet on where the bond market's going tomorrow, or you want to bet on the weather, or you want to bet on something else. And you go and you borrow 3.3% from that overnight rate, and you tell somebody else, would you like to bet me that it's going to be this or that in the next day or two or the next month? And you know all you've got to lose is 3.3% because you're using somebody else's money. Now, do you realize that the derivative market shut down also? That's right. I mean, this is horrifying. And so I asked him, I said, please try to explain. And he said, well, Chaplain, whenever that went from 3.3% to 12.3%, he said nobody in the derivative market could do business. Now, the derivative market is a market that is in the trillions every single night while you're sleeping. Literally, people, in the trillions while you're sleeping. They're making these bets and making money for their companies and so on, and it shut everything down. Now, if that had continued and they had allowed it to go on, by Monday morning we would have had a financial collapse of such monumental proportion that the world probably has never seen it since the day God put Adam on the face of the earth. I mean, this thing was so big, they were sitting back watching what would happen when Mr. Bernanke made that statement. And they knew that they could bring it under control by Monday morning. And a number of people called me, and they said, Chaplain, we're going to have a crash. We're going to have a crash. He said, banks will be closed on Monday morning. I said, no, it won't, because I had been told that it was all going to level out, that they would settle the markets down by Monday morning, and that everything would be okay. But in the course of setting the stage for all of this, do you realize that Wall Street New York Stock Exchange had lost 1,000 points last week in preparation for all of this. And then on Friday, they lost another 200 and something points. But on Monday morning, yesterday morning, sure enough, it picked up again. Everything was okay. Everything's okay today. You know why they did this? They did this to test the markets to see what they could do when they really get ready to bring down the derivative market. No, not the New York Stock Exchange, not Wall Street. Folks, don't pay any attention to what happens on Wall Street. It means nothing. Don't pay any attention to the euro or to Greece. That is such a minor issue you can't imagine. The real issue that you've got to learn how to watch is how to know what's going to happen with the derivative market. Now, let me back up. And for a proof, you will verify that I said this on your program probably a year and a half ago when I first came on with you a long time ago. One of the things I said was that I had been told by my elite friend that the sign that Lindsey Williams, their friend, that the sign that I was to watch was when interest rates go up. Now, Federal Reserve has kept interest rates down to almost zero. It's 0.3, something like that. And they've had it there for the longest, as long as you can remember, in fact, for a few years. And
I was going to say, since maybe Bush was president.
Yeah, ever since Bush was in, we've had that low interest rate down there. And I was told that the sign that I would know when the whole world's financial system was going to collapse was the day that Mr. Bernanke announced that he was going to raise interest rates. Mr. Bernanke did not announce he was going to raise interest rates on last Wednesday night. He hinted that they might possibly stop printing quite as much money, and the financial markets went into a spasm just over his hint, and he didn't even say anything about interest rates. Well, those of you who know what happens as far as financing the United States debt is concerned, you know that we have possibly a $17 trillion national debt. That's only the tip of the iceberg, but that's what they tell us we have. That debt has interest on it. And every time the interest rate goes up, it costs that much more to service the national debt. For instance, let me try to give you an example. Let's say that you bought a house at 3% interest, and your payment was $1,000 a month. Now, if that rate went up to 6%, your house would be a whole lot more than $1,000 a month payment that you'd have to make. Well, it's the same thing with the federal government. The federal government has a $17 trillion national debt, and there's interest on that debt. And every time that if the Federal Reserve should ever decide to raise the interest rate, the amount that it requires to service the national debt would go up accordingly, and the government would have to foot the bill. And they can't do it. They're already bankrupt. There's no way they can do it. But the Federal Reserve sells something called T-bills and bonds. Now, any of you who have access to the financial market, please watch the 10-year bond rate. Now, please jot this down. Watch carefully the 10-year bond rate. They sell bonds, and they have a 10-year maturity, and the 10-year bond rate stays right at 2.5%. That's what the government has to pay because of the national debt that Congress has made and gotten us all in trouble. They have to pay that interest on it. Now, the 10-year bond rate, anytime it goes past 2.5, the financial markets go into a dither because they know the government can't pay it, and they know the Federal Reserve can't service it. Last week, when Mr. Bernanke made this statement, the 10-year bond rate surged also to 2.62, I think it was at one point, at its highest. And the people in the financial world literally thought that the whole financial world was fixing to come apart. Now, you sat back there and you didn't even know what was happening on Thursday and Friday. I was following this like a hawk. And I was on the phone with my elite friend asking him questions about all of this because I saw a 2008 major financial problem coming And it wasn't until he told me, don't you worry about one thing. Everything's going to be okay. Isn't this amazing? How these people can sit back and say, Chaplain, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. I knew this was a test run. And that by Monday morning they would iron it all out. Yeah, go ahead, Proof.
No, I was just going to say, they tell you with no emotion whatsoever.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
It's just,
I mean, $1 trillion means nothing to them. Yes. And he was telling me how this was going to affect the derivative market. You know why he was telling me that? Actually, those 2 emails that my insider friend sent to me, they were warnings given to me personally by the insiders. You know why? I still think that the reason they give me many things they give me is because I gave 3 years of my life to be their chaplain. And some of those people never came in touch with a minister of the gospel before, and probably never will again. But out of respect for the fact that I gave 3 years of my life to be their chaplain, I think they tell me things oftentimes in order to be able to protect my family. And they don't really know whether I'm going to tell it or not. But immediately, when I got these 2 emails, I posted them on LindseyWilliams.net. Now, I want to make you a promise. I'm making this promise to you, Proof, and to every person out there in your audience right now. Anytime, maybe tomorrow morning, maybe a week from now, maybe a month from now, anytime I get something extremely significant from my elite friend or my insider friend, I will post it on LindseyWilliams.net. You have my promise.
Okay.
I'll have them posted up there. Now, you don't have to go there every day because they don't send me things every day. But they send me things from time to time, and whenever I get it, I'll post it because you have got to be aware of the fact that they have a tentative date set. Now, I hope you're catching this. They haven't told me what it is. And the day I find out what it is, Proof, I will immediately get in touch with you. And I'll tell you I have the date. And then whenever I do, you better put me on your program quick because it may be 24 hours, it may be in a week, it may be in a month. But the moment I get that date, and they've assured me somewhat that I'll get it, just out of respect, then I will give it. But in the meantime, every time I get a bulletin from these people that I think is significant, I will post it on LindseyWilliams.net. So go there from time to time and try to understand what they're saying. Now, I want to give you a tentative time frame if I can. So bear with me for a moment, if you may. Back about a year ago, just about a year ago, Proof, I was on your program. And at the time, I told you and said to every person in your listening audience, there is not going to be a financial collapse in the next 3 months. Many of the newsletter writers were out there saying, going to be a collapse in September. Going to be an October surprise. First of the year, we're going to have a collapse. And I'd contact my insider friend, my elite friend, and I'd say, is there going to be a crash? And he'd just chuckle on the phone and say, no, Pastor, there's not going to be a crash. And I'd come back on your program whenever you let me on, and I'd say there's not going to be a collapse in the next 3 months, not going to be a collapse in the next 6 months. I had been given a tentative time. Now, please, don't you dare go and say that Lindsey Williams has set a date. They haven't given me that date yet. But they have given me a tentative time frame that they are working on. They may vary it a month. They may vary it 6 months. And don't you take any chances just because you're hearing it. But approximately a year ago, I came on this program with Proof, and I said, I have been told that there is not going to be a financial collapse for possibly a year and a half. Now, that was approximately a year ago. And Proof, you heard me say it right here on your program.
Yes, I remember.
Now, we have come within 6 months of that time. 1 year has already gone by. And we are within possibly 6 months of their projected possibility. And I think that's the reason they did this test run this past Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, is because they wanted to figure out if their plan will work when they get ready to put it into force. That's right. They have it all planned out. They have everything ready. They know exactly how the markets are going to respond, and they know exactly how to stop the derivative market so the currencies of the world will collapse. They already know how to do it. And you've heard me make the statement here on your program also, Proof, because they've said some things to me along this line. You know, some people have the idea that the only currency in the world that's going to collapse is the American dollar. That is not true at all. Some people have the idea that only
I don't know if I'm skipping ahead or not here, Pastor, but didn't a big bank in China go belly up and they had to be bailed out because they were too big to fail?
That is exactly what happened on Thursday of last week. On the 20th of June, a large Chinese bank, let's see, I have the name of it right here. Bear with me a second, and I will find it in my notes. Let's see. Right, let me find it here in just a moment. I had the name of the bank. It goes under letters like 4 or 5 letters there that describe the bank. I'll probably find it here in my notes in some place in just a minute. But yes, that bank on last Thursday became, okay, here it is, ICBC. The large Chinese bank, ICBC, on Thursday of last week ran out of liquidity. Now, let me try to explain that. It doesn't mean they went bankrupt. It means that they ran out of extra funds in order to do business with. In other words, they didn't have any extra cash between the mattress, if I could put it in layman's terms.
Okay.
They ran out of liquidity.
So they could run business, but they couldn't do any extra. I got you.
Couldn't do business. And so China stepped in and said, we'll bail them out. But later, the government of China stepped in and said, we're not going to bail them out. I mean, this was a real strange happening that took place last week. And so China had to step in and bail out its own. You think that America is the only country in the world that's going to have its currency to collapse? No, that is not true at all. The euro is going to collapse. The Chinese currency is going to collapse. The Japanese currency is going to collapse. The American currency is going to collapse. The world all over everywhere, whenever the derivative market collapses, the entire world's currencies are going to collapse all at one time. Are you catching this? We are past the stage of just the American dollar collapsing. We're way past that stage. China is in big, big trouble. Do you realize? We don't realize, because I just got it today. I want to read you this that I got just a few minutes ago. China's shadow banking system. You realize they have 2 banking systems in China? I mean, China's communist. China has no morals. China has no 10 Commandments. China has no Bible. China is a communistic, atheistic system. And in China, they have 2 banking systems. They have one that's run by the government, and then they have a black market banking system that is commonly called the shadow banking system in China. And I want to give you the figures that just came out today. China's shadow banking system equals to over $18 trillion. Did you catch this? The underground black market banking system of China is over $18 trillion. China's stock market has fallen 20% and is in free fall. You think that America is the only country in the world that is going to have its currency to collapse? Not on your life. When they get ready to pull the plug, every currency in the world, and then they will step in with their new world currency and announce their new world order. Okay, I want to give you some of the preparations that they made ahead of time. Let's see. I believe, Proof, we go a little past the next hour, do we?
Yeah, you have up until about 30 after, so you got about 45 minutes.
Okay, good. Well, I've got time to give this then. So I'll give everyone in your listening audience as much as I possibly can tonight.
All right, and I'm going to go commercial free up until 8:30 Pacific. Okay,
thank you. Now I want to show you the preparation that the financiers, the insiders, the elite have done. I'm going to read you some figures. You'll find this on LindseyWilliams.net. This is the second email that was sent to me on Thursday morning. I'm reading it, quote, "The U.S. market has declined over the past month." Well, that's nothing new. You just look at the shopping centers and how many storefronts are empty, and you know that the American market is declining drastically. Okay, next. The Japanese stock market has recently dropped 20%. Japanese, third largest economy in the world. The U.S. bond market has sold off. This is drastic. You know what cities run on? Bonds. You know what school systems run on? Bonds. You know what the retirement funds, everything, it runs on bonds.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know Social Security runs on bonds, or at least it did.
All bonds, paper. And whenever the bond market sells off, oh my goodness. Okay, again. The next one, gold, since January the 1st, has dropped 20%. The Chinese stock market, please catch this. Folks, you're beginning to realize that not only America but China is affected. The Chinese stock market, the FXI, has fallen 19.69% since January the 1st. Now, we thought that China was in great shape. They were building entire cities overnight in order to house this wonderful boom that they're in. Do you realize that because of the falling in the standard of living and the recession all over the world, that China is in just as big a trouble right now as we are? I mean, yeah, really. China's getting to be in just as big. The only problem is they've got so many more people over there than what we've got. Do you realize that China has in uniform as many soldiers as every person in the United States of America? We can't comprehend the size of China. And the Chinese stock market has fallen 19.69%. Let me go to the next one. The emerging markets, that's the third world countries that are beginning to come up to the standard of other countries. You take them as a whole. The emerging markets have depreciated by 11.3% in the last 30 days. 30 days. Now, I want to give you a secret. I want to give you a key. I didn't know this until my insider friend told me this past week, and I was dumbfounded. I mean, I can watch the market so much better now than I ever could before. I mean, this past week has been a college education for me. I literally have learned so much about finance, and I thought I knew something after being in touch with these people all these years. Do you know what the elite watch in order to tell what the condition of any particular country or the world is in? No, they don't watch gold, even though that's their currency. Gold prices, that's not that important to them. Silver prices aren't either. They don't watch New York stock market. That's a laughing stock. That's a joke. What Wall Street does, it's controlled every day. You know what I was told that they watch? Now, this is going to amaze you. And you've got to start watching this price because this is what they watch. They watch the copper market. I was dumbfounded when I was explained this past week. Folks, you're getting an education here tonight that unless you went to some financial advisor and really sat down in his living room.
I saw the site Monday yesterday, and I saw some of the stuff you put up, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to jump ahead of you here, but
I don't mind, Proof. I've got so much more to give. Please, you jump ahead of me all you want to. You and I are good friends. You won't bother me a bit. I won't lose any sleep over it. You might lose some sleep over the fact that you don't listen to what I'm saying tonight, a few months from now when it happens. They watch the copper market. The premier asset that is considered the indicator of growth and contraction, the copper market, has contracted 18% since January the 1st. Now, you know what that means to the average insider who knows what to look for? Even some of the people that you go to invest, even some of them don't know this. But the insiders tell me they watch the copper market. They know that since the copper market has gone down 18% since January the 1st, they know that the economy in the United States of America has done the same thing. And that's exactly what's happened. We have dropped. We've contracted approximately 18%. You can expect the stock market to do that. You can expect gold and silver to do that. Do you notice that everybody this goes together? And this is what the insiders, the elite, are watching. Now, I want to tell you something else they're watching. Now, please, people, I hope those pencils are going a mile a minute. They are making preparations. The elite, the insiders. They did that test run on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and the average person didn't know what they were doing. But you know now. You have no excuse. You know what they were doing. I want to tell you what else they're doing in order to meet the time frame that they want. And I am not telling you the time frame because they haven't given it to me yet. But they're working the following. First of all, Congress last week passed two very significant bills. And it was, keep in mind, the elite write these bills. The elite tell Congress how to vote. I have been on the phone with one of my insider friends when they laughed at congressmen. They think they're a joke. They talk about them as if they're nothing in the world but pawns in their hands that they can pay off to do anything they want. I have so little respect for the congressmen that have been up there 5 and 10 and 15. You might have a few of the younger ones that are trying their best to fight their way through this thing, but every single one of the old ones are bought off. And I've had the elite to actually laugh and say, Chaplain, those bunch of pansies up there in Washington, they're nothing in the world but people that we can pay off. Well, they paid off and got two bills voted in this past week. Number one was the farm bill. Oh, my goodness. Up in your part of the country, this is going to be major. Do you realize that every dairy product on your table is going to double in price on January the 1st of this next year, 2014? The farm bill is scary. They passed a second bill this past week. Come on now, write it down. You probably haven't even heard it. It's called Mortgage Debt Release Act, passed by Congress this week. You know what it did? It basically, as of January the 1st of this next year, will make it impossible for anybody to short sale their house. Right. Can you imagine what's going to happen to the real estate market as of January the 1st of 2014? There will be no more real estate market. Most of the houses that are sold today are sold on short sale. The people have gone under with them, and they don't want to keep them any longer. And rather than
my wife actually sold her house and moved in with moved all her stuff into this house just last month.
Yes. And they're doing it with short sales.
Right.
If they don't want to hurt the credit so much. There will be no more short sales after January the 1st.
Let me just share real quick here that here in Las Vegas, a house that was worth $300,000 5 years ago is selling on the market for anywhere from $60,000 to $75,000.
Yes. And you think that's bad. You haven't seen anything yet. You're waiting until they can't sell them at all. Because you can't do any more short sales. And that Mortgage Debt Release Act was put in. Now, please, folks, you've got to understand the time frame here. They did the test run this past Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to see how they could collapse the derivative market when they get ready to do it. They have caused major problems in China. The elite control China just as much as they do America. And they control the European Union just as much as they do America. And then they're putting in certain things that 6 months from now, 8 months from now, will begin to take effect because they have a time frame they want to work on. I plead with you folks to hear this. All right, they've got two bills that went through Congress this past week. Next. And I hope you'll understand this phrase. For all practical purposes, this past Wednesday, the President of the United States of America fired Mr. Bernanke. Now, I know it's a startling statement, but I want you to think back on the statement that the President of the United States of America made on Tuesday and Wednesday of this past week. Please think back. You heard it in the national news. He said, Mr. Bernanke thinks that he possibly has served his term as long as his usefulness really is, he can really do the job in the Federal Reserve. Do you realize that the President of the United States of America, in a very polite, Mr. Bernanke didn't say this, the President said it. Do you realize that the President of the United States of America was basically firing Mr. Bernanke as of January the 1st of 2014? Do you know what effect that's going to have when all of these other things are kicking in? And then there's one more. And this one startles me more than any of the others. January the 1st of 2014, the health care bill takes effect. And you know what's going to happen to you when the health care bill comes into existence? You're not going to have any more health service. 40% of the doctors and healthcare professionals in America will have quit by January the 1st. They can't make a living at it anymore. Doctors are closing their offices all over America right now by the dozens. They're closing offices everywhere. I was just the other day with Dr. David Janda, one of the most prominent physicians in the Midwest. In fact, he's so prominent that Congress asked him to speak before Congress recently and tell what he thought about the health care bill. That's how well known this man is. He has already announced a date that he's going to close his practice. And he's one of the most prominent physicians in the Midwest. And he's already sold his office building. A heart surgeon in Oregon made the statement the other day to a friend of mine. He said, if I am required to follow the dictates of the new health care bill, you commonly know it as Obamacare, he said, if I'm required to follow those dictates whenever I am operating on a person's brain, he's a brain surgeon, one of the best in Washington and Oregon, and he said, if I'm required to follow the dictates of the health care bill, he said 50% of my patients will die on the operating table because he said, I can't do it. He said, I can't follow the rules they want me to follow. And he's already read them. We are going to face a health care crisis as of January the 1st of 2014 like you've never seen. Now, I got this from a businessman just the other day. I won't name his name. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'll go that far. He owns a fairly sizable business there. And he said, Chaplain, do you realize what you're going to have to pay for health insurance this next year? And he said, the average person will be paying $20,000 a year for health care. Required. You don't have any choice. It will be, the premium is a tax. And IRS will collect it. And you will pay it or go to jail or be fined. And he said the average person is going to pay $20,000 in 2014. He said, you know how much I'm going to pay? Let me express why this man is this way. He has a wife who had a stroke about a year ago, and she is a semi-invalid. And he has to have the best of insurance. He had it before she had the stroke, therefore he keeps it. He said under the health care program that takes effect January the 1st, 2014, he said it will cost me between $40,000 and $45,000 per year in order to maintain my present health insurance. Folks, you had better get ready. Now, I'm going to help you. That's right. I have never done this before. Never. In the 37 years that I've been telling what the elite have told me, I have never told you their health secrets. I hope you caught that. Their health secrets, I have never told them before. I've said a few things on the air from time to time, but I have never gone into the depth of some of their health secrets. They have told me. In fact, I was very ill recently, very sick. And my elite friend said, Chaplain, you've got to go where we go. And I did. I had to go outside the United States of America. I had to go where they go. And I came back home feeling great. And
hey, I was
now
right there.
I'm doing fine.
We did a show together.
Yeah, we did a show together. They know where to go. They know what to do. And there are some things that you positively must get into your health supplies before January the 1st of 2014. You've just got to do it. You need it in your medicine cabinet. Now, not everyone can afford to go across the border into Tijuana and go to the hospital where my elite friend went. All of you can't afford that. But there's one thing you can do. You can use the other things that they use. Many of you realize that when President Reagan was president of the United States of America, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. He went to Europe. He didn't go. He had it done. And brought a substance into America that was illegal to be sold in the United States of America. And he used it and never had a reoccurrence of colon cancer. Now, it's available in America now, and many of you don't even know about it. I didn't either until about a month or so ago. I tell you all of these secrets. I give you things that might save your life. I'm not saying it will, but it very well could, because when 40% of the healthcare professionals are no longer there, can you imagine how long you'll wait in the emergency room? There are certain things that you have got to learn how to do on your own. So it actually came out today. Proof is so significant that I am on your program tonight, because today, the 25th of June, was the release date for my new DVD that's entitled Healing. Now, you'll find it on lindseywilliams.net. Go there, and just under these 2 emails that were sent to me by my insider friend, you will find the information about how to get Healing the Elite Way. And I beg of you, for the sake of your family, who will not be able to get health care in America as we know it today, you will find out a lot of things that you can do in order to spare yourself. There is positively no reason for you to ever suffer again from cancer, heart disease. That's right. Did you know that there's actually a Nobel Prize that's been given to 3 men it was, back a number of years ago, that told how to clean out all of your blood vessels so that you will never have a stroke or a heart attack? And it's been hidden. The elite know about it. You know about it now. You can actually get it now. You couldn't get it a few years ago. It basically was just kept off the market for the longest. And there have even been 2 books written about it. You can get them if you'd like it and prove it for yourself. And I tell all these health secrets. There is no reason for you to suffer from these diseases any longer. You can have help right there in your home. And so I would urge you to please, when you go to lindseywilliams.net, look down and find Healing the Elite Way, and I beg of you to order it, along with the DVD that I did 2 months ago. Please get it along with that DVD. The one I did 2 months ago was entitled New Signs the Elite Have Given Me. And I saw even back then that they were fixing to do this. And so I had gone to my insider friend and gotten some signs from him to help protect my family, and I dared to put it on a DVD entitled New Signs the Elite Have Just Given Me. And I hope if you haven't gotten it that you will. Now, here's what I'm trying to say. Do you realize that all of these things are shaping up to a time frame? The Farm Bill, the Mortgage Debt Release Act, Bernanke being, for all practical purposes, fired by the President this past week, takes place January the 1st of next year. A new Federal Reserve Chairman. The health care bill kicks in January the 1st. Do you realize that every bit of this, and then last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they did a test run to see where they could go with the markets and how, when they get ready to, that they can collapse the derivative market. And every bit of this is heading towards their new world order as they want to do it. Now, there's a lot of preparation you can make. I'm presuming...
Before you get into that, Pastor, I just want to mention that there's 2 other things which are supposed to be huge this week that the Supreme Court and the Senate will be voting on, one of which is the immigration bill, which has a ton of pork in it for a 1,200-page bill that most everybody has not read. And plus, you have Barry today, the president, discussing that he may vote by executive order a cap and trade for carbon emissions.
So he just isn't going to allow Congress to give us a free enterprise, going to give us a republic, a constitutional republic. He's just going to refuse to allow Congress to give us. He took an oath when he was sworn into office to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, and he is denying Congress the right to be able to vote on bills.
Yeah, it sounds like you're surprised.
Yeah, we've got a dictatorship here. We've literally got a communistic total control, no different than Stalin, and this man seems to have no qualms whatsoever about what he's doing. So
right,
you have
let me
all
just
of
read
these.
the headline here out of the London Telegraph. Barry today unveiled the most ambitious plan to counter climate change ever put forth by a U.S. president, saying he would not condemn future generations to a planet that is beyond fixing. So he is to cut emissions in a vow to save the entire planet. And I'm not going to read the story, but I will post it on our freedomizerradio.com site. But go ahead, Lindsey. I didn't want to take up too much time.
No, I appreciate you stepping in like this because I had not caught that one this morning. I was so busy watching the financial world until I had not even had time to look at things like that. So every bit of this is shaping up. Now, I have seen a lot of predictions recently about the 4th of July. I don't pay any attention to them. I've seen many, many predictions on the Internet about September, first week of September. I don't pay any attention to them. According to what I'm hearing from my insider friend, there is going to be a major, major event like probably the world has never experienced since God placed Adam on this earth thousands of years ago. There's probably never been anything like this because never before in the history of the world was it worldwide. All initiated by a little group of people who have the ability to be able to do it. And never have we had the debt and the interest rate that we've got today. We've never had this in the history of the world. And the whole thing is designed to collapse. The derivative market was designed to collapse. The banking system of today is designed to collapse. All Bernanke has got to do is, or whoever the Federal Reserve Chairman might be, all he has to do is just say, we're not going to print money next month. Never mind anything else. To the time when he didn't print any at all, that's all he has to do is just go back to that, which wasn't but a matter of months ago. And as a result, the whole financial system will collapse because it's all based on funny paper pulled out of thin air and given to the banking systems of the world, and they have such a horrible appetite that they can't do without it. They gobble it up, and they become accustomed to it. And whenever they don't get it, then they have no way of doing business the next day. And that's when your bank is going to be closed. Let me give you another here that you probably saw it. Maybe you realize the significance of it, maybe not. But let me go into this one also. And then I'll try to give you some of the things that they basically have told me to do. On June the 12th of 2013, there was an announcement that really startled some of us. And it was the time that J.P. Morgan, now J.P. Morgan is one of the largest, I guess the largest financial house in America. And J.P. Morgan also has a gold vault. Now, let me try to explain that. There are a number of gold vaults around the world. They are hidden. Nobody can get to them. It's kind of like Fort Knox. And stored in those vaults are metric tons of gold. Now, why is that gold there? Because somebody bought it, and J.P. Morgan gave a piece of paper to that person saying, if you ever want your gold, I'll give it to you, but in the meantime, I'll hold it for you. And J.P. Morgan and the COMEX hold massive amounts of gold for China and India. Now, Chavez was wise before he died. He demanded that the gold vault in which Venezuela held its gold, that it be physically delivered, that gold, back to Venezuela, and before he died, he got the gold back to Venezuela. He was one of the first ones to do it. Now, there are many other countries and people in the world that have come to the realization that the gold is not there. Are you catching this? It doesn't exist. Yes, J.P. Morgan gave out pieces of paper saying, we've got your gold. We'll give it to you anytime you want it. We'll hold it for you. Here's a piece of paper saying we've got it. You just tell us when you want it. Well, they have. Within the past few weeks, literally metric tons of gold have been demanded to be delivered. Germany said they wanted their gold back. Chavez said he wanted his gold. China and India and Japan are saying they want their gold. And they are literally taking the gold out of the gold vaults and demanding that it go back to their country. In fact, I want to tell you how many customers demanded gold in one day. You ready? From J.P. Morgan alone, on June the 12th, 6,208 customers demanded physical delivery of their gold, and J.P. Morgan's gold vault dropped in 24 hours. Are you catching this now? I'm saying it slow so you can get it. J.P. Morgan's gold vault dropped 28.4% in 24 hours because countries and people, super wealthy all over the world, were saying, deliver it. We don't think you have it. Now, there was a prediction made at that same time by J.P. Morgan that literally stunned us who were watching it. J.P. Morgan said that if this continues, this same rate continues, in a month and a half, our vault will be empty. Now, are you realizing why they have forced the price of gold down in the past few days? You know why it's fallen from $1,900 to $1,200?
You know, that makes
J.P.
perfect
Morgan
sense because now they're not going to sell it at $1,282. It's not worth as much, so they're not going to want it just yet.
Also, J.P. Morgan doesn't have it in their vault. They've got paper saying they're supposed to have it, but they don't have it. They've got to go out and buy it. Are you catching this, people? J.P. Morgan doesn't have it. They've leveraged it, and they've used it on the derivative market. Overnight, people, while you're sleeping, J.P. Morgan and Citibank and Wells Fargo, they are playing the derivative market to the tune of trillions of your dollars overnight.
Hey, I want to ask you a question real quick, Pastor, because people have asked me this question, and I have a hard time trying to explain the answer. I mean, I know the answer kind of, but if every country in the world owes money, who do they owe the money to?
Well, they owe it to different ones. The banks in America, for instance, owe it to the Federal Reserve. Let's say, well, it varies depending on who they are, but it all boils down to the super wealthy, the elite, as I like to call them. And, of course, they basically hold the purse strings of most everything, but it really doesn't matter because whenever they collapse it, everything goes to zero. Everything that you have goes to zero. And at that point, they start all over with a new world currency. Now, let's go back to J.P. Morgan for a moment. I hope I answered your question, Proof, because it is owed to different people. But let's go back to J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan now knows they don't have this gold in their vault. And J.P. Morgan's the biggest financial house in America. Doesn't it stand to reason that they would tank out gold prices in order to be able to buy every bit of gold they can get their hands on in order to supply to those people that they told they had it in their vault so that they won't have to come to the point that they say, I don't have it? Because the day that J.P. Morgan says, I don't have your gold, they go bankrupt. They're wiped out.
Right, but I guess the question, though, Pastor, is how many times can J.P. Morgan say, hey, look over there, a unicorn, and people aren't paying attention?
Yeah. How long can this go on? This is the question. Just how long can it continue before maybe it gets out of hand? But these things are happening right before our eyes today. Now, those of you who have relied on gold and silver, I'd like to reassure you. I want to give you some real hope. Don't pay any attention to where gold and silver prices are right now. Don't pay 1 ounce of attention to it. Hold it. That's what you buy gold and silver for. You don't buy it to trade tomorrow. You buy it to hold. And gold and silver prices are going up. Gold is going to go to $3,000 an ounce. It has to, because they're going to back the new world currency with it. Silver's got to go to $75 an ounce. Don't worry about the fact right now that J.P. Morgan, the COMEX, and others are tanking out the price of gold and silver so that they can buy everything they can get their hands on in order to meet the demands that people are giving on physical delivery. But whenever this gets over with and blows over, you're going to see the price of gold and silver go back up. So just hold on to what you've got. And if anything, if you can afford to go out there and buy any more, please go and get it right now, because you probably never see a lower price than this on gold and silver in your lifetime. So we're seeing all of this shape up for, what should we say, a tentative time frame down the line, the ways when they're going to do some things that are going to be very startling. And you can make preparation for this right now. I'd like to suggest a few things that have been suggested to me. Bear with me if any of you have heard this before, but I need to reiterate some of the things they've told me. One day when I was talking with these people, the question was asked me, Chaplain, how much money do you have in your bank account? Now, we were on the telephone. And you know good and well telephones are being listened in on, telephone conversations these days. So I wasn't about to answer the question because I don't know who listens in on my line as many radio shows as I do and many controversial things as I say. So I wasn't willing to say anything on the telephone. And finally, my friend got the message that I was not going to give him a figure. And he said, okay, let me reword that. He said, let me phrase it a different way. He said, can you afford to lose what you have in your bank account? And I said, not on your life. He said, then, Chaplain, if you can't afford to lose it, you better get it in tangibles. In other words, if it is written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. And anything that you've got in paper, it matters not whether it's a mutual fund, a 401k, an IRA, a bank account. If you can't afford to lose that money in your bank account, then you better do something about getting it in tangibles, because you are going to lose it. Now, there's many things you can do. And it's not always gold and silver. I don't sell it, by the way. I'm sure Proof can tell you where to get it. But a paid-for roof over your head is a tangible. A garden spot in the backyard where you can raise a garden when things get tough, that's a tangible. Gold and silver is a tangible. You may need something that you need to buy for your house, a new washer or a dryer or whatever it may be. If you've got the money and you can afford it, get it out of paper. You must get out of paper within the next few months' time before they decide that the paper is going to be exchanged or devalued, because when it does, it's not going to buy you anything anyway. So you may as well go ahead and use it now. Between the mattress, you need some, enough to get you by for a few days while the whole process of horror is going on. But after that's over with, that paper is not going to do you much good, because they are going to exchange it, and there probably will be a bank holiday. And we're looking at a test run that has already been done this past week by the insiders and the elite in order to decide exactly how they can bring this about when they get ready to. So I'm considering that you have already done the one thing that everybody should have already done. I'm not even taking this into consideration, because I'm sure that listening to Proof Negative, you've already done this. I'm sure you already have your long-term storage foods. I'm presuming that everybody in your audience, Proof, has already bought.
Well, there's always new listeners, so we can't verify everybody, but I'm sure the average person listening probably has something by now.
And I'm sure that you've gotten some water storage. You can do without food for a number of days. You can't do without water for 24 hours. So I'm sure that those basics you've already taken care of. I'm taking that into consideration. Now I'm talking about things that you need to do in order to protect yourself as far as paper as far as other items are concerned that you need to take in consideration. Many of you will remember that I have said here on Proof Negative program numbers of times that the elite told me a long time ago, they said, Chaplain, do you know what our currency is? And I said, what is that? And they said, gold and silver. And they said, that's the only thing that has no controls on it. And they said, not going to let it be controlled either. And it's gone down a little bit right now because of short buying and all that sort of thing, but don't pay any attention to it. They're going to take it back where they want it to go. And it's the only thing they depend on. The elite do not have anything in paper if they can't afford to lose it. And that's what I'm trying to say to you is, if you can't afford to lose it, get it out of paper and get it out as fast as you can, because this is not too far down the line. They're setting too many factors in place right now that when they get ready to, they can bring it to a point where they want it to go. Proof, I'm wondering, I know I've covered a lot of material here and I've still got some more to cover, but I'm sure I'm missing some things. You know, I think in terms of these people talking to me on the phone from time to time, and I think in those terms, and sometimes I fail to think in terms of the layman out there listening to your program. Tell me if there's anything you think I can touch on.
Well, let me ask my co-host here. She's been silenced tonight. Mandy, do you have anything you want to bring up, or do you feel as though we didn't cover anything?
No, I really don't. I'll be honest, as far as the financial aspect, I am not big into the financial aspect. I've never been involved with the terminology. I think you've described it very well for the quote-unquote average listener. I don't think that you have to be well-versed in economics or financial matters to understand what you're saying. And I've just been sitting here listening because while I have nothing to add to it, everything you're saying I understand. And it's really fascinating and interesting. And it sounds like we really need to step in and start taking care of ourselves before it's too late.
Well, I feel honored that you would put it that way, because it makes me feel like I've been able to explain it so that everyone can understand it. So if I can explain it to a housewife or a lady, I'm quite sure that that most everybody is catching it. So thank you so very much for that kind comment.
Well, thank you for putting it into the terms, and thank you for, taking the danger to warn us all, because this is important. And my first comment that I was thinking to myself while listening to you was, how is this man still on the air? How is this man still getting this information out? Because like you said, they're tapping our phone lines, and the people that they're going after first are the ones who are making the warnings, the people in media. So we owe you a debt of gratitude as well for sticking with it and getting this information out, even though you're putting your life on the line.
Well, let me try to explain why they do this, because there is more behind it than just meets the eye. When I lived with the elite those 3 years, keep in mind now, I had been the pastor of a church for 12 years. I had dealt and counseled with hundreds of people, and I had been able to kind of analyze people. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting with people that normal people want to hear about but never get to meet. And I tried to do the same thing with them that I would do with my church member. I tried to figure them out. And it was early on in my course of living with these elite that I found out that they do have a code of ethics. This is very strange, that these people who control the world and dominate individuals would have a code of ethics, but they do. Now, their code of ethics is quite different than yours or Proof's or mine or the Bible's by far. But they have a code of ethics, and one of the facets of that code of ethics is they must tell the world everything they're going to do before they do it. They do. They may tell you through a movie. They may tell you through the national liberal media, if you know how to listen to what they're saying. They may tell you through telling Lindsey something. But they will tell you everything that they're going to do before they do it. And I think, number one, they actually do realize that I have millions and millions of listeners, that I have the privilege of, and I say it by grace of God, because I'm nobody. You know, I'm just a little everyday guy that puts on his britches just like you do every morning. The only difference is I know the people who are doing it. That's the only difference between the two of us. And I can pick up the phone and call them. And I think oftentimes they will tell me things because they know I'm going to give it out. And there have been a few times, please, let me assure you, there have been a few times when I've been threatened by these people. I said something I wasn't supposed to say, something they didn't like. And I was called in Denver, Colorado one time when I was there. I was called into the Office of the Secret Service. And this is how deep this goes. And they said, Chaplain, you can't do this anymore. Another time I was called on the phone by one of these people, and he was irate. Oh, he was mad. He said, Chaplain, you do not do this anymore. And so I guard what I try to say. I say it if I think it's something that'd get me in trouble. I'd at least rather give you something than to be dead and not give you anything. So I try my best to weigh out what. So number one, I think they oftentimes tell you things. And secondly, keep in mind, I probably am the only person of my kind that some of these people ever came in contact with. And it established an element of respect that for the sake of my family, my wife and my children, these people tell me things. And every time that I can, I try to give it out to you. Now, you have a promise tonight that I've made, and that is that every time I get something extremely significant, I will post it on lindseywilliams.net if I'm able to. Now, there are times that they might come to me and say, Chaplain Williams, don't you dare do this. Don't you dare say this. And when they do, I'd rather be alive and tell you something than to be dead and tell you nothing. But every time I can post it, I will. So please keep in mind, maybe once a week or every few days, or when I call Proof and say, have your people go to lindseywilliams.net. I might do that sometimes, Proof. Go over there to lindseywilliams.net from time to time and see if I have posted anything like I did on this past Thursday. And you'll also find the radio shows that I'm on. May I again beg of you to please get Healing, a DVD, an hour and 46 minutes long, I believe it is, and I give you the secrets of the elite. You can save your health. You can be well. You do not have to suffer. I know, because I was very sick recently myself and took their advice and was much better. Please get Healing the Elite Way. It's right up there on the front page of lindseywilliams.net. And I hope that if you haven't gotten new signs the Elite have given me that was done about 2 months ago, this gives the very latest signs that they've told me watch for so that you'll know before it's going to happen. So all of these things, but first of all, before you do any of that, please set your spiritual house in order. I just can't stress this enough. You'll bear with me because I've been a minister of the gospel now for over 50 years, and I know the importance of being right relationship with Jesus Christ, and knowing that you have eternity to live with Him, and you have the guidance of the Holy Spirit to help you because you know Christ is your Savior. And I would beg of you to go to the Bible, especially to the book of Romans, and that you make that decision for Christ and know that your sins are forgiven and that you are a child of God. And then when the storms come, your house will be able to stand, because if they're on sinking sand, you're going to be in trouble. So you can have hope and help in Him to guide you through all of this. So set that spiritual house in order. And Proof, it has been such a privilege to be with you tonight, especially at a time like this, when I just got this a matter of days ago. And I want to thank you for responding so quickly. I know I sent out an email and said that I'd have to do this within the next week's time because I felt that people need to know about the test run.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Pastor, I have two people that have been on hold for about an hour, and they both would like very badly to talk to you. Do you have
I will be glad to talk with them.
All right, we're going to go to AJ in a few minutes in Philly. Right now, I believe we have Gary who called in first. So we'll take care of these two callers, and then we'll finish up the evening here. Gary, welcome in.
Hey, Proof, how are you?
Oh, I'm adequate.
Good evening.
Lindsey's here. I know you had a question for him.
Yeah, hey, Lindsey, Gary, I have a program, The Truth. I'm an ordained minister as well, and I just want to make a point, and you may have touched on this. Forgive my clock thing in there. But anyway, gold is valuable, and gold will continue to be valuable, not because man said it, but because God ordained it to be. Genesis 2, it says the first river was mentioned was the river Physian, which it passed the whole land, and there was gold, and the gold of that land is good. We also see in the book of Genesis where a loaf of gold will buy a loaf of bread. So I don't care what people are saying, whether gold goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways. Gold will always be valuable because God said it, I believe it, and that settles it.
I love it. You could not have put it better in no words you could have put it in any better than that. The Bible is always right. And all you're doing is just following the scriptural pattern.
Yeah, and even it says the streets are paved in gold.
God knows He knows the most valuable thing.
Yep. And if you look at it, whenever anybody was rewarded, they were rewarded with gold necklaces. So I am in total agreement with you that, when America went off the gold standard, that's when the economy started collapsing.
Yes.
That's
exactly.
when we were in trouble. Also when we stopped standing with Israel. But hey, man, I'd never heard you before. I love your heart. I love your spirit. I think you're right on the money. I signed up for your email and proof. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
Okay.
Well, brother, Lord bless you. I'm so glad you're a minister of the gospel. I wish you the blessings of the Lord and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And I am so excited that you would call in tonight.
Yeah, we'll definitely connect for sure. And proof, if you can I'll go ahead and connect with you on your website. Thanks a lot, Proof.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to AJ real quick here. AJ out of Philly, welcome in.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
Hi, AJ.
We're okay.
Hey, Mr. Williams, I got a couple questions here for you. I was listening earlier, and you were talking about them Bernanke's statement about not printing as much money. Honestly, I don't want them to print any money at all. They can take their Luciferian, blood-infested money, and I think we should all burn it to protest it. We were much better off before the Luciferians that own the Federal Reserve took over. We need to go back to the old way. And you were just talking about gold. We can all have gold, but I have faith in my Heavenly Father. He will always provide. I don't need a gold coin or this or that. He has always provided for me, and He will continue to provide. I don't buy into the whole buying gold and buying silver thing. And I wanted to ask you mentioned about Denver, Colorado. Now, there's other people that have mentioned Denver, Colorado. What is the significance with these people in Colorado?
Now, let's see, in what manner are you speaking of Colorado?
Is that like where the Luciferian headquarters is at? The Illuminati, whatever you want to call them? I call them the criminal elites.
You're right. They are the criminal elite, and I did not say that their headquarters was in Colorado. I have heard people say that they have some places in Colorado. I have never been able to verify that, even though it may be true.
Right. Now, I wanted to ask you this, too. Us knowing the ways of these people, and, if you look at the dollar bill, the Luciferian symbolism's all over the place. The Luciferian symbolism's all over Hollywood. The Luciferian symbolism's all over everything that these people infest. How do you know that they don't feed you disinfo?
You're exactly right. Their symbol is everywhere. It's on our dollar. It's a seeing eye. And you're right also in the fact that we should have never allowed them to print their paper and take away the real value that America had many years ago. You're correct.
Now, let me ask you something. Knowing that the way these people are, they're like their master, Lucifer, who's very elusive. He's a deceiver. He's a liar. We know this. Just look at what's going on in the world. How do you know that these people aren't feeding you disinfo so that you turn around and feed disinfo to the public? Like, how can you trust their word?
Well, let's go back a ways and give you an example or two. Back about 4 years ago, the price of crude oil was $147 a barrel. And one of them called me up on the phone one day, and he said, Chaplain, do you want the world to think you're a prophet? I said, what are you talking about? He said the price of crude oil is going to go to $50 a barrel. I said, you can't do that. I said, that would devastate the OPEC and the oil-producing countries of the world. He said, Chaplain, it's going to happen within the next 3 months. Well, I went on radio shows all over America, and I said the price of crude oil is going to go from $147 a barrel to $50 a barrel. I had talk show hosts to laugh at me. And I stuck by my word because I knew that in 37 years they have never told me anything that they didn't do it. So I stuck my neck out, I said it, and exactly 3 months later, just like he said it, it went to $42 a barrel. It went below $50 a barrel. You know, the only thing that I have to go on is track record in the fact that in these 28 years, they have never deceived me.
I'll tell you what, you're a bigger man than me because you put me on the phone with one of these guys, I will go off. And if you put me in their presence, Lord forgive me because I'm about to sin. I tell you what, I have no patience for these people, the way they manipulate the world, the way they cause wars, the murdering that they have so much blood on their hands. It is disgusting. And they have people so deceived and so brainwashed. You know, I was speaking with someone recently, and I told him, I said, you know, from the day you step on that, matter of fact, it's not even since the day you stepped on the school bus. Since the day where you were born, unless you woke up, you have been mind controlled. And you basically every thought's going through your mind is what they want in it. I mean, that does not sit well with me. And I'm sure that their little cronies have tapped in, you know, on Freedomizer and other avenues that I'm on. And they know how I feel about them. And I couldn't stand in their presence. I'd go off because I just do not like the way they operate.
Yeah, let me try to explain why I do. And I feel exactly like you do. And people oftentimes say, well, don't you enjoy picking up the telephone and calling these people? I said, not on your life. I just do not talk to them. But the only reason that I do it is because of people just like you. And I know if I can grin and bear it and stay in touch with them, I will be able to help you save a lot of heartache. And as a result, I put up with what I do for the sake of being able to get on programs like this tonight and tell you things that can be of help to you.
Yeah, you're like I said, you're more of a man than me. I couldn't stand there in their presence or on the phone with them and, you know, keep my cool, so to say. I'd go off. Just knowing what we know. I mean, people like they, you know, it's so hard to kind of really explain the guts of what's going on here. It takes faith. It really does take faith. It's really hard talking to an atheist and trying to explain the ways of these people and their belief system and how they are basically controlled by a force that we don't see. It's frustrating. I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I realize it very well. What always gets me is, now we can talk about the police and these other minions that are out there and how they go against our freedoms. That gets me too, because our freedoms are their freedoms. But with these people and what they do and who they worship, if they know that side of the coin, then why are they stopping from the other side of the coin? Why would they sell their souls on the left when they can go to the right? They're severely misled, lied to, maybe even severely possessed or even controlled. You know, to the point that they don't even have a soul anymore. The soul's gone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Everything you've just said is true. And yet we've got next-door neighbors, friends, who you and I have told about Jesus Christ. We've told about salvation. We've explained to them how the blood of Christ, God's Son, can cleanse them from all sin. And yet they go on day after day after day and take a chance on facing the graveyard before they make that decision. It's the same way with the elite. They are having so much fun with their jet aircraft and their yachts and all of their fancy houses, and they're obsessed.
I think it comes even the materialistic things are more of like a reward to them. I think what really gets them is the power that they wield. The power. Yeah, the power is the most motivating force that they have. You're right. More so even than money. Oh, yeah, because they've conquered money. It's not even about money. It's about the power. It's about the way they can manipulate the masses and sit back and laugh at it.
Well, a good example is Hitler, or Mussolini, or Stalin, or Mao. Perfect examples.
I mean, if you look at even what's going on today, you got like that Boston bombing. We know that was. I mean, the DHS came out and basically admitted it was a drill. It was an operation, and they do these things, and these people believe it. They you have the president, which I call the puppet. They're the main puppet. He sits on TV and he'll sit there and tell you this and tell you that, and people are hanging on his every word as if this guy has all the power to make change or bring about hope, and he doesn't. He's just a pawn. He's a puppet. And I laugh at them people, and they got to be laughing even harder than me because, they're getting over on everybody. It's a shame. I wish this world would just wake up. These people would be on the run, There's a lot of people out here that live in fear. They live in fear, and they do. Because if they get found out, there's going to be a witch hunt, and they know it. That's why they do everything that they can to hide in the shadows. They'll blame other people before they take blame.
There's only one thing on the face of the earth that when I lived with them, I found out they fear. Only one thing. Money doesn't bother them. They've got the power to do as they please. They are literally scared to death of the masses waking up. There's a handful of them. There are millions of us. And because of programs like Proof Negative and others that you listen to, millions of Americans are waking. And this gun issue just recently probably woke up more Americans than any other one thing in many, many years. And it's bothering the powers that be very much.
Good. They need to
that NSA story, you guys, has woken up a ton of people, too. People, even though I reported it 5 years ago and Alex Jones way before about how Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint they were basically monitoring and recording people's conversations for the government. Oh. And I got laughed at, and now you have the average person saying, well, I don't do anything wrong. I don't care if they spy on me. But enough people woke up with that, though, because they didn't know that before.
Yeah. The thing about it is you have people, I mean, it just, they spilled the beans. I mean, how much more blatant could they be? They announced it. That's why I question this Snowden guy. I think this is another one of their tricks. They do this just to see how much people really care. They're still on Facebook. They're still checking into their locations. They're still uploading pictures of themselves and their children and putting their likes and dislikes on there. They're putting all their information out there. And I just spoke to someone the other day at a party about this. The way I talked to this guy and told him what's really going on, he went from a smile to a shocked look on his face. And the girl who was standing next to me was like, yeah, you know what, Aaron, he's right. I'm like, I know. And this was another test. Like you were saying earlier, Mr. Williams, about, Bernanke making that comment, that was a dry run. They do things like this. They shock the system to see the public's reaction. And then they get on their little computers and run their little data checks, and basically they do this to see how to, other ways to control us, totally control us. Absolute power.
I want to thank you for mentioning something.
Go ahead.
You mentioned something a moment ago that I never talk about it, I don't think, on a show because I don't have an opportunity. You mentioned Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
I hope to goodness that everybody out there in Proof Negative's audience realizes how dangerous those things are.
Oh, absolutely.
You realize that they can take the information on Facebook and Twitter and other of those type things that you might have, and they can psychoanalyze you and know everything in this world that you're going to do. They know your thought patterns. They know your lifestyle. They know everything in the world about you. Those things are some of the most dangerous you could ever possibly imagine. And if you own them, I hope to goodness you'll give a second thought to it in a hurry.
Well, look, if you really look at what they can do, they can get everything about you off there. They can get your facial recognition, put it right into their system for their whole, nationwide facial recognition system. So you have nowhere to run. Every camera, anywhere, any surveillance camera goes online live with this program that they have, you will constantly be known where your location is at. And then if you're putting videos out about yourself and you're talking, now they got your voice recognition right into the system with it. I mean, they do that with the phone calls anyway. They'll call your home, get you to answer a blank phone call. That they can get you that way. But absolutely, you know, they credited this guy Mark Zuckerberg for creating Facebook. I don't believe that story one bit. That was another lie by them. They created.
Well, I'm so glad you brought those subjects up because they're so critical, and very, very seldom do we have an opportunity to talk about it.
And people, they just keep playing right along with it. You know, hey, I'm at Pizza Hut. Look at me. Hey, just checked it at the local mall. You know, you want me, come and get me. Here I'm at.
I use it to share news. I figure they're going to psychoanalyze me from doing a radio show anyway. But yeah, I don't sit there saying, "Hey, I'm at GMO Bell trying to figure out what to order," or "Hey, I'm in the bathroom," or "Hey, come look at my brand new house." I'm not going to post a picture of my house or my kids on my website.
So many people do, though, Proof. So many people do.
Let me ask Lindsey a question real quick here. Pastor, did you see today, well, probably not, but Donald Trump said that this Edward Snowden guy should be assassinated for sharing about the monitoring and spying on Americans.
Oh, jeez.
I did not see that, but I wouldn't doubt it a bit. Trump really has a way of speaking things as he says them.
That's just all part of the show. This is a big show. I'm telling you, this whole thing just stinks. It stinks bad. It's all part of the show. You know what? They're going to, you know, they might be doing this to take our attention off of something else. You know, they might be doing this.
The immigration bill, personally.
Absolutely. You know what? They just passed it. The Senate passed it. Val Ann was just talking to me about that.
I've been waiting to see if they would pass it. I know they moved to end the debate, but they didn't finish it out yet.
Hey, you know what?
Speaking of Val Ann,
you know what else is camouflaging this, though? You know what else is camouflaging this is the big vote on gay marriage and whether it should be legal in the United States is another sidetracking issue.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of them out there. And you know what? Here's another thing too, Mr. Williams. I'm sure you know this. They use the media to mind control the masses. That's what the media is for. And you know what? It all started with the Rothschilds back in the 1700s when they purchased Reuters, and then they turned around and purchased the Associated Press. They have total control of the media. There's only 6 networks out there. They're all in the same clique.
You are exactly right. You know, it's so good to hear an informed individual that knows what he's talking about.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not easy some days waking up and putting a smile on.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you and I have read the last chapter, and the Bible tells us what's going to happen. And I knew it would happen someday. I just didn't know when. Really didn't expect it to happen in my lifetime, but I'm glad it has. And if I had a choice of living any time in all of history, if God had given me a choice, I would probably choose today because I don't think there's a more exciting day on the face of the earth than right now.
You know, it is an exciting time, and we, you know, there's a couple things going on, but you have a lot of the New Agers, and anyone listening right now, I don't mean to offend you, but New Age movement is rooted deeply in the Luciferianism, basically the New World Order plan. Sorry to spoil your mood. It's true. Look into it. But, you know, we have not only that to combat. There's a lot of things, you know, just waking people up in general about just simple politics, you know, the simple lies. And we have the other side of it. It's the spiritual side of it. These are exciting times. They're very trying times, too. Don't get me wrong. And there's going to be even harsher times coming. You know, I had recently said to someone that my vision of the future is a mix of the movie The Terminator and Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. That's what it's going to be like.
Yeah, well, it's coming to a head.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? And I was just saying today, I was just talking to Val Ann from Truth Exposition. I told her, I said, you know, they're going to create the chaos. People will demand the order. They want to create order out of chaos. That's another way that they'll be able to slide the New World Order, their global governance in. You know, they crash the economy, get a couple of psychological operations going on, a couple of false flag attacks in this country and other countries around the world, just create total mayhem, getting people completely out of control, you know, hungry, blood will be, you know, rolling on the streets. That's what they want. People will cry for order. They know it. They've studied history. That's what they do.
And then they'll bring it out under the auspices of the New World Order.
The Luciferian New World Order.
Yes, exactly.
So, Pastor, I'm guessing you didn't hear what was in this immigration bill that they're discussing now. But one of them
please tell me.
One of the main issues is that if you have less than 3 strikes on your record, whether it's not paying taxes, whether it's DUIs, whether you had a hit and run, whether you robbed somebody, whether you had something that was short of killing people or anything extremely harsh, you have amnesty on that. They're letting you have citizenship with a clean slate as long as you don't have 3 strikes.
Well, there's another thing, another aspect to that in the conversation we had today that I was unaware of. I guess I should look into this bill a little bit more, and people should be irate about this. They're looking at ways to actually put these illegals right into the armed forces because they know when it comes down to it and they declare their nationwide martial law and try to disarm the people, we have the enemy combatants in here. We have the foreign troops already here and in Mexico. They're waiting to come in. So, how much easier could they make it if they let these people actually join our armed forces? They don't swear to the oath to uphold the Constitution. They won't swear to it because they're not American citizens. Those people have just to go in here and get a paycheck. Take your orders. If that, we cannot have that. That is insane. These people don't care about our Constitution. They'll burn it in a heartbeat. They care about making
one of the
money
other things, too, is that there's going to be a 2.5-year moratorium on doing anything about the border fence.
Put that up.
It's on page 72, if I remember right.
They got all these Chinese down in Mexico. They don't want to put no border up. They want them to freely come across that border and invade us. They need someone other than American citizens to disarm Americans. They know that if stuff gets real bad, they declare martial law, they know that half the military is going to defect because they're going to go run right back home to protect their families. They're going to see the writing on the wall. They know this. I know a lot of people in the military that are fully awake. They're just in there for a paycheck. They said straight up, we will never turn our backs on our Constitution. We will never turn our backs and fire on American people. That's the day we fight with the people against the federal government. They know this. That's why they'll never, ever do anything about that border because they have enough Chinese sitting down there right now ready to come across. Why do you think they want to disarm us so bad? So that we can't sit there and blast them as they come across that line.
Exactly.
They want a smooth transition. They want to be able to hide in their little caves and hide in their little mansions wherever it's at or whatever rock they live under. While they create the chaos, and they're going to sit back and they're push their will on people through their minions, or their foreign minions, I should say. And the funny thing is, when people come in here and think they're going to overtake us, they're going to fall under the same disgusting will, the same Luciferian power. See, people of the world
it all has to come down someday.
Yeah. People of the world need to wake up and realize we're all fighting on the same side. Destroy the borders. We're all human. We all believe the same, hopefully. If we don't believe the same, well, we got a couple clones walking around us. But, it's us
I know we only have a couple minutes left here, so I was going to let you plug your video, and I think we're going to close up shop here so that Lee Peer can get his show going here.
Well, Proof, it's been a privilege to be with you tonight. Today, that's right, Tuesday, the 25th, we premiere our new DVD series entitled Healing. For the sake of the health of your family, please go to lindseywilliams.net and get the video. Just click on it right there, and you can order it. Healing. Now, the signs I've talked about tonight, we produced a video on that about 2.5 months ago. I'm sorry to have to produce so many videos, one right behind the other, but things are happening so fast I don't have any choice. I've got to get the information out. Please get that one also, the new signs the elite have given me, and you will have the markers that they have said to watch for as this comes down so that you will know in advance it's going to happen. So lindseywilliams.net. And Proof, thank you. Keep up the great work. I am so appreciative of you that I don't know how words can possibly express it. and just keep up the great work, and Lord bless.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Pastor. It's been a privilege to have you here, and I guess until something new happens, you know what? We spent so much time on this, we didn't even get to talk about the Middle East like we normally do, but we'll save that for another time.
There'll be plenty of time, I'm quite sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Pastor.
Lord bless, and good night.
Take care. Thank you.
All right.